Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show 2021, the 1st of January. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider and a provider of everything you need when it comes to winter weather, like scrapers for those of you that are dealing with freezing rain tonight, and of course, there's shovels for those of you who are dealing with maybe a little bit of snow. And Petalo calcium chloride pellets, the best on the market when it comes to ice melt plus geomelt, biomelt, and so much more. And come the springtime, by the way, they got tons and tons of mulch, every color you can imagine. So that's at Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, just north of the Southern State Parkway, 631-756-1125. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. And a new year has begun, Mr. Rayo.
It has.
Kind of sort of looks like it looks just like the old one.
Yes, I have a poem to kick off our first Joe and Joe of 2021.
High upon a daffodil, out on a limb so thin. Go for it.
It's a new year once again, but what's so new about it? Will everything be better? I seriously doubt it. Will people still suffer from hunger, hate, and war? Plus 100 other problems we'll continue to ignore. We'll have the same old arguments because no one gets along. My opinion is always right, and yours is always wrong. We'll all say Happy New Year because that's the thing to do. But it seems to me the number is the only thing that
That's
was
new.
new. Yes. And there you go. Off we go with 2021.
All right. Well, we're starting off with a winter mess in the Northeast, at least away from the coastline anyway, with freezing rain, sleet, and some snow. We've got another weak weather system. Well, it looks kind of on the weak side for later Sunday night into Monday, and then all sorts of complications and odd sorts of things on the long range, which we'll cover. So yeah, in many respects, you're right. Even in the weather world, what we finished with a couple yesterday, we are starting with today.
Yes. I stepped outside a little while ago. Of course, they have been issuing all kinds of winter weather advisories and danger warnings. And my brother in law and his wife were here, and we had to kick him out of the house quick because he was concerned about, oh, the roads, they may get icy and terrible. And I stepped outside about 5 minutes ago, Joe. It's 33 degrees. A light drizzle is falling, absolutely no ice anywhere, just wet and chilly and dank and damp. And off we go with the first day of 2021.
Yeah, I had some ice pellets a little while ago, but now it's just mostly light, very light rain. There's just it's not even the pavement's barely wet, at least from when my last check is, and this is more of a nuisance than anything else for most areas. You start to go well inland where temperatures are going to be a little more tenuous. Uh, there will be some slick spots, but in terms of serious ice accretion, this does not look to be any kind of big ice storm for even for places in upstate New York and there are a few areas back in central PA that may wind up with a quarter of an inch of ice accretion, but uh, I'm not really overly concerned about it.
No, I'm not either. It's not going to be anything. Now, my other brother-in-law, who is out in Brodheadsville, Pennsylvania, Monroe County in the Poconos, 28 degrees and drizzle there. So I'm going to make the assumption that out there, the precipitation is maybe a bit causing things that are a bit more slick and slippery. So you're heading out, to the west and north of where I am, or especially to the west, it may be a little bit more problematic weather-wise. But here, I would say that if we haven't had any real problems now, we're not really going to have any real problems in the foreseeable future. In fact, if anything, temperatures are likely to be going up later tonight. So I don't think we'll have too much to worry about locally in terms of any kind of wintry conditions, wintry
Right.
weather.
Yeah. And Johnny Quest just messaged me saying that where he is up in the mountains, and now he's up 3,000 feet up in northwestern Virginia, west of I-81, 41 where he is, but in the valleys, In the valley down below, it's at 32. So this is where, if you're in Pennsylvania, for example, or in upstate New York, and you go in between mountains, and you could find areas where cold air winds up being trapped. There'll be some snow out of this in northern New England, up northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine, where they've got winter storm warnings up. But we'll get through this overnight, and then tomorrow looks like improving weather conditions, and probably in the 50s tomorrow afternoon with a nice breeze.
Newfane, Vermont. Bill Rogers asking me how much ice in Newfane, Vermont. I have absolutely no clue where Newfane is, whether it's southern or central or northern Vermont. But my
I think if I remember, Bill's in somewhere in southern Vermont. But Bill should elaborate to us on the chat board where, if that's near one of the larger cities in Vermont that Joe and I will maybe easily recognize, and we'll give it a look. See, I'll bring up the ice accretion map, and we can take a look at what's going on. Uh, 39 likes so far as we get underway on this New Year's Eve. And as we all know, Joe and I love it when we go over 100 likes. So do hit the like button if you haven't already. And if you're new to the channel, welcome on this New Year's Day. Hit the like button if you can. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, by just simply using your Gmail account. And then you can participate in the very lively chat board and all the members of the chat that are on here on a nightly basis and get into the conversation. Stephen Franco, an early hit to the super chat, Till.
Thank you so much.
And we appreciate that greatly, Stephen. Thank you so much. And I guess we went through all the alcohol from the champagne till, so now we can start. We can start my birthday till, which is in 26 days.
27 days?
Well, not counting today. Today's
Okay.
almost over, so 26.
Okay.
And let's get started here. I'll start with the ice accretion map of the Northeast, and we will take a look at who's getting what and where. Just a second here. Let's see if this is the right one. Hang on, I got to do a quick bring it down. Bring the page back up. It's all this technical stuff I got to do. Close this. You should be able.
Technology, Joe, technology.
No, it's just getting used to where
I gotta tell you quickly, my as I mentioned at the top of the show, my brother-in-law and his wife were here, and they were concerned about the situation regarding ice, whether or not they should leave before the ice started, which never really got going here. But he said, go down. Could you go downstairs and check the radar? I came down here, and when I got back upstairs, it was like 5 or 8 minutes later. He said, "What took you so long?" I said, "Well, I was looking at the brand new, ultra new, super fast National Weather Service radar." And I said, literally, I was sitting at my monitor and watching as piecemeal various parts of the map were coming up. And then I said, after it all came up, then I had to try and start it all up to get everything into motion or whatever. Needless to say, Joe, this is not going to work, I think, for
no, that radar's got to go.
The radar
it's got to go.
It's
got to go. Bill Rogers says he's about 12 miles north of Brattleboro in Vermont.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I know where Brattleboro is. I think any place in Vermont has a fairly good chance of having at least a few hours of icy rain or sleet. So I wouldn't go out if I were you this evening because of the potential threat of slippery and slick conditions. But even up there, Joe, I think
even more in the southern half than in the northern half. The ice
Yeah.
accretion amounts are even there are not anything to write home about here. We're talking under 1/10 of an inch in most places from the Weather Service digital forecast. And north of Albany on the up the Northway, it's between let's just say between 0.05 and 1/10 of an inch. You've got some 1/4 of an inch amounts in the Catskills down into the Poconos, and then also in some of the mountains in central and south central PA, State College down to Altoona, and then moving down into western Maryland. But everybody else is just pretty much 1/10 of an inch or less.
And even up there, I would say that as we move on toward daybreak, the temperatures are going to begin a slow rise, and that's with the warm front. that will cause a rise in temperatures here locally during the overnight and hopefully set the stage for at least a relatively mild first half of the weekend for us here on Saturday.
Snow up to the north because it will eventually, some snow is involved in this equation up north of I-90, where there could be 3 to 5 or 6 inches. Maybe some of the higher mountains will get closer to 7 or 8. Also, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, 2 to 3 inches of snow. You go further north, you start to get into some numbers, maybe around 4 or 5. This is not a big deal. The highest amounts remain in Maine, where looks like a couple of inches down near the coast, and you go up further north, up 201, for example. You're seeing amounts there in the 6 to 9 inch range. So by Maine standards, those are flurries, and everywhere else, it's all well. I mean, there are some numbers that were indicated by the Weather Service back across Pennsylvania and northern Connecticut down into southern Massachusetts. I think for the most part, uh, maybe a few places get a coating, maybe a few places get a coating to an inch or so, but there's just not enough cold air. That really is what this was a margin. This was a case of marginal cold air being around, and Sunday's weather system also looks like another case of marginal cold air, but it's a little different on Sunday because we're not gonna we had a high to the north, so there was low level cold air, but the upper levels are warm. Sunday's going to be reverse. The bottom layers of the atmosphere are going to be warm, relatively speaking, not that warm, but they will be warmish, and the upper levels are going to be cold. So sleet and freezing rain won't be an issue. It'll be a matter of whether we get enough intensity to go over to a sort of one of these borderline wet snow situations, particularly for areas around here.
Yes, yes. And it really didn't look, in terms of the Sunday event, because I did see a few people who were commenting about, oh, here comes the big snowfall. And even somebody here on our chat board was talking about the possibility of blizzard-like
For
conditions here on Sunday.
Sunday?
For Sunday, yeah.
No.
I I forgot who it was, but somebody here on our chat board was talking about it looks like we could see blizzard conditions here on Sunday, and I didn't understand
It's on the chat board
how much.
right now.
No, 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 that
Oh,
was
that was
yesterday.
yesterday. I think he was referring to the next weather system for the end of next week.
Oh,
I think he
okay.
was
Well,
talking about what was in the long range,
all right,
not for Sunday.
all right.
Sunday, we'll get to Sunday in a moment. Let's do first things first and get through tonight. Just looking at the satellite, you can kind of tell how far west this primary low is. If you look at where you see the rotation that is going on, it's all back into Illinois. Now they've had a significant icing event and some snow back in that portion of the country from this, and there's still some winter storm warnings that are up. But we're basically getting this arm of overrunning that's lifting up to the northeast, way ahead of where the main low center is. And while there's going to be some kind of secondary low that develops on the warm front, it's not going to be of any real consequence.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what more can I? I can't really, if I agree with you, I don't want to. I'll
Yeah,
say,
no, no,
yeah,
no.
I
I,
think
I get it there. Yeah, I mean, there's really not a whole lot you can say about this particular system.
right,
It's stretched out. When your primary goes so far to the west, it just becomes a mess. So we'll get through this. It moves on now tomorrow by daybreak. It's pretty much ending or has ended from west to east, and then we go on to the next one. And you know what? I am going to get rid of this. Hang on a second, Joe. I'm going to just put. I'm going to see if I can get this to load the precip up. In the meantime, I will punch up the Weather Service watches and warnings map. I've got a couple of radars that we could look at uh, and see what's happening.
and while you're punching that up, 219 people are watching and 79 likes, at least
So
as of my screen as of this moment.
So we want to do we want to see that those numbers roll up to 100. So 22 to go. Get us over the 100 like mark, folks. Just hit the like button and make Joe and I happy. Okay, we've got winter storm warnings up for the areas up in northernmost Vermont, one county in northeastern New York, northern New Hampshire, and in Maine. Most of the state of Maine is actually under a winter storm warning, which kind of makes sense considering that's the area that we showed you with the snow totals of 8 to 10 inches. We still have winter weather advisories in the southern half of Michigan, northern Indiana, back through northern Illinois, and still a few winter storm warnings up in western Illinois, back into northeastern Missouri, but that seems to be winding down. Meanwhile, in the west, we've got high wind watches and warnings up in northern Montana, and a scattering of winter storm watches in the Sierra Nevadas in California, and also a few winter storm watches up in parts of Idaho, a couple of counties under a winter weather advisory, and also winter weather advisories up in the Cascades in Washington, and I see even one county under an avalanche warning. Those are always good, and they got us over 100 likes. Thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
So, also should also want to mention that there's a little bit of severe weather action going on in South Carolina at the moment. Some flash flood watches there, and I think it's the same color. I can't see with my glasses. Those are either flash. Those are either. Nah, that might be. Oh, you know what? Let me just punch it up. The color. The colors look like it's. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is still it's a flash flood watch that we're seeing in parts of Southwest Georgia and in a handful of counties on the Florida Panhandle. So we'll play this storm through. The bottom part of this is going to stall out. The front's going to stall out in the southeast, along the southeast coast and down into the northeastern Gulf. And we're going to have another wave develop there, and we'll bring that up the coast for Sunday. And from SPC, marginal risk of severe weather this evening in South Carolina, a good chunk of Georgia. You can see the radar here on when it pops up on the screen. You'll see it. The radar is pretty active down in South Carolina and Georgia, right down into the Florida Panhandle. Up to the northeast, we're looking. You know, there's there's one reasonably solid patch now in southeastern Pennsylvania. But you know what, Joe? It's already over in western Pennsylvania. West Virginia is done. There's rain scattered, patches of rain in Virginia and down into North Carolina. But this is moving along, so everything's on schedule. I think we'll start to see this wind down during the early morning hours, and let's just get it out of here.
Think so, yeah. And on the SPC convective outlook, almost up to our area for the current day one outlook. Most of the activity is confined to the middle Atlantic and southeastern part of the country tomorrow. And then on day three, which is Sunday, just a very slight little sliver encompassing the outer banks of North Carolina and the outer banks of Virginia for possible thunder and lightning on Sunday with that next system that again will be moving offshore and probably either providing us with a touch of wet snow or rain during the day on Sunday.
By the way, happening right now, it's at 7:50 Eastern time. So if you're watching this on a replay, be sure to go to weather.gov to get the latest information regarding severe weather if you're in Georgia or in South Carolina. It looks like they've just issued, as we're speaking, they just issued Tornado Watch 0001.
Number one.
All right, it's loading, so I can't really see it yet. I'm checking the various links here. No, not yet. So we'll come back to that. Let's come back to that in a few minutes so we can give folks that are watching down in the Peach State and in the Palmetto State some the information regarding this. WPC 7-day rainfall. Some of this includes tonight's weather system, and it also includes Sunday. It goes to Friday evening, 7 o'clock Friday evening. So I don't know how much of if WPC is looking ahead on what some of the longer range guidance is doing for late next week. Some guidance is showing action moving into the eastern part of the United States. Other into the northeastern part of the United States. Other models are not, so we'll have to see how they rectify it. Look at the west, Joe. It's loaded. I mean, this fire hose in the Pacific with that positive East Pacific oscillation creating that huge area of low pressure in the Pacific. Tons and tons of rain. For Northern California, we're talking about 5 inches or more. Pockets of 10-inch plus rainfalls as you run your way up the coast through Oregon and Washington and on into southwestern Canada. Heavy snows going into the Rockies, into the northern Rockies in Idaho, and also into the mountains in the Sierra Nevada. So they're going to get they're going to continue to get clobbered there. One thing's for sure: no matter which way this pattern evolves into, it does still seem like the Pacific is going to continue to feed in a lot of energy on a regular basis, and it'll be interesting to see if the pattern ultimately does change in the eastern part of the United States to favor some colder weather, how that plays out.
Several people on the chat board, by the way, Joe, are asking if you could center or recenter the map.
Yes, I
And
will do that.
from my standpoint here, I'm looking at
Yeah, I'm sorry.
approximately
There
one
you go.
quarter on the left is black.
Thank you. No, I
So
appreciate that. And sometimes it's when I move to different maps that are sized differently, they do tend to change the perspective on the screen, and I happen to take off the software. I happen to move the software
there
that I
you
was
go.
using. So now it's all fixed. I got the software in front of me, so I'll be able to keep an eye on it. Now, the probability of at least 2 inches of snow. Now, this is a tough map to look at today, mainly because of the fact that the time here, it's not often that we have two storms that are inside the time period that WPC is looking at. So it's hard to decipher on this which is which. So I'm just going to skip it tonight, but I'll just give you that quick look, and I'll just bring up their probability of freezing rain. And I mean, even here, Joe, they've really backed off on the probability of freezing rain. Now, some of it here is already fallen, so this would be an additional. This is for the period starting at 7 o'clock tonight until uh, well, the next 72 hours anyway. But this is all effectively overnight, and you're looking at a 50% chance up in the Catskills, northeastern corner of Pennsylvania, and then going northward from there, a 50% chance of at least a tenth of an inch. And as far as a quarter of an inch is concerned, the probabilities actually of a quarter of an inch are at most 30 to 40% in a couple of pockets in the Hudson Valley and going on up toward Albany. So again, I don't think this is going to be. It's not like we're talking about half an inch of ice accretion or an inch of ice accretion here. We're talking about, basically minimal stuff. And on the long range, let's see if the long range goes out far enough on WPC's long range for snow. This goes on the last day, would cover the long range. They don't have anything yet, so at least up until Friday morning. So this is also this is too early for us
Speculate.
to speculate on. So here's what I have the surface map here from 10 o'clock this morning when the high was sitting over Poughkeepsie, and you can see that the wedging with the isobars down into North Carolina. Uh, just Actually, it's funny. I don't know when I drew that map with the V shape. That's been a while. But you did have, there's a little bit of wedging here of cooler air. This actually helped to set up the severe weather because if you notice, folks, the severe weather chances, because you do have a significant warm sector to the south of that. So temperatures were generally in the in the upper 30s and low 40s down into North Carolina, while in southern Georgia and down in the Florida Panhandle and back through Alabama they were in the 60s and 70s. And this was at 10 o'clock this morning. On the latest surface map, you still have that warm front pinched in, which interestingly enough, this is at 5 o'clock this afternoon. It's still in the low 40s in much of North Carolina. It's in the mid to upper 70s in central and southern Georgia, with dew points in the mid to upper 60s. So no surprise here. that we're seeing severe weather. Your primary lows in southern Illinois, your high, as far as our weather is concerned, is well east of the coast of Maine. There's another high center in western Maine, but the body of the high is not in a good spot to wedge down what little cold air there was. You need to have that high sitting somewhere in upstate New York or over the St. Lawrence River and not moving very much for this to have been something more problematic. But fortunately, from this, because I'm not a freezing rain fan at all. I mean, that's just the worst. Uh,
It is. It
yeah,
is.
no, that's the worst. So fortunately, the high moved out, and now we'll just play this through. Let me see if we've got these severe weather watches in yet. And hello, SPC. I don't know why it takes them. They put it up on their front page, and it takes forever. It loads up as an error page for about 5 minutes, most of the time for about 5 minutes, and no, it's still got the broken image box on there. So
Oh.
no, we'll just we'll have to come back to it. Okay, so just a sneak peek here on the I brought up, I had it preset to the European model at day 10. With the European, Joe, as I've been checking around, the folks that have the European going out beyond 240 hours say that the European shows a very bullish pattern for winter weather uh, going forward. So the problem is that unlike yesterday, the issue is that the GFS has gone the operational GFS has gone in the direction of going back to what we've been having, dealing with that mess in the Pacific, and yet the ensembles, if you look at the ensembles are suggesting that it's that the European may be closer to reality. So I'm not sure right now what to think. But I was cautious and guarded about what was going on, what we saw yesterday. I'll remain cautious and guarded for at least another few days. If we're sitting here on Monday and we start to see some uniformity, then we'll be able to gain some confidence in terms of where we're going in the longer term.
I believe I'm looking at the European ensemble right now. And it seems to be just by looking at what's ahead. For me, Joe, I'm able to look out as far as 360 hours. And I'm talking
Oh,
about like
wow. I'm impressed.
I'm talking about January the 16th, and it looks like we're going to be in a pattern of near or even maybe a bit below normal temperature wise through much of that time frame. I'm not exactly sure what the folks over at the Climate Prediction Center are looking at. They have us straight on through the month of January, either at or above normal. And
Right.
they also have us below normal in terms of precipitation. So what they're suggesting is that we're going to have basically in the month of January a mild and relatively dry month. I'm not sure if that's going
There,
to pan out, but
well,
that's what they're saying.
it is the New Year's weekend, so I'm guessing they're probably at minimal staff right now over the last few days. And they always seem to be a little bit behind when it comes to whatever the model they're doing it off they do it off the 0Z, so we've got the 12Z. They always seem to be a little bit a day or so behind. If the models start changing into something else, it takes them a little time to catch up. So why don't we give them till Sunday or Monday to see if they amend that forecast.
I'm looking also at their hazards outlook. Temperature wise, nothing. Precipitation wise, this is from the 9th of January to the 15th of January. Um, Along the immediate coast of Oregon and Washington and extreme northern California, there's a slight chance for heavy precipitation the 11th through the 15th of January. In terms of snow, the Cascades. Uh, well, what else is new?
Yes.
January 11th through the 15th. Wind, slight chance again, right along the Pacific coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. So it looks like, Joe, what they're looking at for the first 2 weeks of January, all the action basically is going to be pinned up out in the far west along the Pacific coasts of Oregon, Washington, and Northern California, and most of that activity coming during the second week of this month. the 11th to about the 14th or 15th of January.
Right. Okay, so let's roll through this first storm system. I've got the NAM up from late this afternoon. The primary low in northeastern Ohio. You see the precip moving. This is at 1 a. Right now on the frame that you're looking at. That I'm holding it still. This is at 1 a.m. You see the back edge running in eastern PA down into western North Carolina. And then it moves on out up in New England. You've got rain in Connecticut, Massachusetts. You see the icing area in southern Vermont and New Hampshire. The NAM tries to actually pull that icing further north than some of the other models are, and actually even changes it to rain in southern New Hampshire. But it's mostly snow, central and northern Vermont, central and northern New Hampshire, and of course in Maine. And then that low moves out. Not a shabby looking, not a tight gradient, but enough of a gradient tomorrow that we'll have a nice breeze as weather conditions improve in the afternoon. And then we will turn a little colder tomorrow night into Sunday. There actually is, Joe, a little high that's going to be building up in upstate New York and New England on Monday. Not much of one, but a little one. And I think that's going to help to bleed down a little bit of cold air. And now, of course, if you take a look, I'll roll it back. The bottom half of this front is going to stall out. You'll run it from that low and just kind of runs down into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Because usually in most situations, we get a low like this, it moves out, it's done, and then we improve for a few days. It's not too often that you have a front that stalls like this and then get a second wave that comes up. But there's so much energy in that southern part of the jet stream. There's another short wave that's moving eastward. So you get a low that comes out of that, moves into North Carolina, and you see it here. And there's that little high up in western Maine on Sunday, 10 a.m. Rain into southern New Jersey. The NAM is changing it over to snow in central Pennsylvania, central and western Maryland, and northern Virginia. The other models are not quite doing that. And then you got this. This is where it gets really difficult, or certainly a challenge, because I was looking at the temperature profiles, Joe, and they are at least at the 5,000 foot level, the 850 millibar level, they are actually a couple of degrees colder than they were yesterday. The zero line doesn't no longer goes all the way up to Poughkeepsie. It stays just off the south shore of Long Island and moves into Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and then goes west to just north of Trenton. I'll bring it up in a moment. But again, when you're dealing with marginal cold air in a situation like this, where you don't have an overly developed low, it really becomes very tough. If you don't get the precip intensity to cool the bottom of the atmosphere, you'll get gloppy flakes and rain along the coast. And yeah, okay, inland, northern New Jersey, you go up the Hudson Valley, maybe north of 287, you get some snow out of this. But it's hard for me to see how you're going to get a lot since the models don't seem to be really developing a robust area of precip with this.
And you know what, Joe? We have on Sunday. We have. I think the Giants are playing at MetLife Stadium,
Uh huh.
trying to see whether or not they're going to make it into the playoffs or a critical game.
Yes.
Is that true?
I,
Or
I, I think it is. I wasn't paying attention.
I mean, that wouldn't it be something if we had big, floppy, slushy, wet snow falling during that critical game? That would make for an interesting scenario for Sunday afternoon.
Right. And there is also some snow that's going. Now I know Buffalo's got a playoff game on Sunday in Buffalo. If it's a 4 o'clock game, I don't know what time the game is, but if it's a 4 o'clock game, or even if it's a 1 o'clock game, it may be snowing for that game on Sunday. So we'll be able to watch them play football in the snow. And then the low after this, it's kind of tricky. This is going to impact how the weather goes on for later in the week. Before that, I'll bring up what I was talking about with respect to. I'm going to bring up that 850 F Gen on the NAM,
Right.
and since you are a big fan of using this, and I've become a big fan of using it as well, thanks to you. What do you make of this? And please don't go to the airplane response that you can make a hat or you can make a brooch out of it. Um, but there actually is a rather robust looking area of Omega here Monday evening from 7 p.m. and particularly at 1 a.m. All of Long Island is just buried in Omega, as well as southern Connecticut and northeastern New Jersey. The zero line is cutting right across Long Island Sound to just north of New York City to just to the east of Trenton, and then goes down into southern New Jersey. Any uh, any
And this is
implications there?
and this is for when now? I can't see the valid time on the
Oh,
maps
this is
here.
at 1 a.m. on Monday.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, um, you see that much, and you say to yourself, well, there might even be a little rumble or two of thunder, a little convection going on with all of this. And yeah, and the 0 degree line is pretty much right across the tri-state area. So I don't know. This looks rather interesting. And this is the NAM, right?
Right, this is the NAM. I
The NAM.
also, I also, when I looked at the FOOS for the 12Z NAM, I noticed that the LaGuardia, it was right at critical, zero, 0, 0, -1, 0 degrees for three temperature levels going from the bottom of the atmosphere on up to 5,000 feet. It was right at the freezing mark Sunday afternoon and Sunday night. The thicknesses, which we like to look at, were sitting right around 540 or 541. The vertical motions weren't anything to write home about. There was like +4, and then it went negative by Sunday evening, which is kind of odd considering all the omega that was around. Now, I'll be curious to see if we get a repeat performance on the 0Z run, whether we're going to see this big area of omega again. Now, I pulled up the 700,
But
and
the thing is, Joe, what were the thicknesses? Were they at or above 540?
they were like 541 ish. I mean, close
So,
enough.
so I mean, some of this may be
It was
more
it was 540.
sleety.
I think it was 543 at 1 o'clock and 541 at 7 o'clock.
This could be more sleety than snowy.
Well, it could be. I mean, and the temperatures were 0, 0, -1.
But you're right. It'll be nice to see the. Too bad we can't get the zero Z Nam. We're not going to see it until 9:30.
Now
That's an hour
this
and 20 minutes from now.
now
So
let me ask you this question. So we just looked at the 850 omega. Okay, I've brought up the 700 millibar omega, and it show at 700 millibars. The omega area is aligned differently and is further northeast. So what do we conclude from that?
if I were to just look at that and not look at the surface, I would say that omega is more representative of kind of like a warm frontal passage. Uh,
Okay,
uh,
there's a little bit of omega a Sunday evening in northwest New Jersey, northeast PA, and like in Orange County and on up northeast into Dutchess County, and then that moves into Connecticut at 10 p.m. And then it sort of stretches out from northwest New Jersey northeastward up into eastern Massachusetts at that level.
yeah,
Yeah, this is a
the atmosphere is more dynamic and more robust at like the 8 or 9,000 feet up as opposed to 4,000 feet on the 850.
that's
Uh,
interesting. I mean, because the 850 is cold. The 850 is relatively speaking, the 850 is cold in this particular instance. I just think it's. Uh,
maybe something. I hate to say a surprise, but maybe in the next 24 to 48 hours, something is going to happen that's all of a sudden going to become. It's going to come more into focus. And oh my God, what they weren't saying this 2 days ago.
yeah, a system like this is definitely, when you look at the history of systems like this, they can surprise in either direction. You could wind up with nothing, and on the other hand, you can do pretty well. Now, I would have liked to have seen. I can't use the NAM precip because they don't have a 24-hour precip map. The GFS does. And interestingly enough, on the GFS, Joe, they have a half to three-quarters of an inch of liquid covering northern New Jersey into the lower Hudson Valley. So it does give between half and three quarters. That's not shabby.
Right.
And on Long Island, it's basically 3 or 4 tenths. In northeastern Pennsylvania, there's also another patch of a half to three quarters of an inch. And I'm just going to bring up, the upper low. I wanted to see where the upper low moves because oftentimes it's a very, very broad upper low here that's in upstate New York. But it's pretty far to the west. I mean, there's some decent jet streaks that move on through, but the upper low itself is back in western New York. So I mean, normally if you get the upper low is very close to where the surface low is, you sort of look to the track of the upper low, and just north and west of that upper low track is where you wind up with a band of some hefty snows in some of the more well-developed systems, of which this is not. So a lot of questions. There's still a lot of questions, I think, with regards to Sunday.
And who's to say maybe, just maybe, like let's say overnight, Sunday night into Monday morning, that coastal system suddenly finds a way to intensify more rapidly than the models are saying, and then combines with that high to the north. And what am I suggesting here, Joe?
No, I know. Listen, I just the GFS snow just for laughs, and we've said many times you don't really like to use the GFS. I'm sorry, you don't really like to use the snow maps as a forecast tool, but at least in terms of what it's producing in areas that it is all snow, the GFS actually is producing an area of 6 inch plus amounts in central PA. It's got 4 inch plus amounts in northern New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley, 3 to 4 inches, patchy areas of 3 to 4 inches in Connecticut. I mean, if you want to be conservative, you can cut that in half, which is usually a good thing to do when it comes to these snow maps, particularly in the areas where you're dealing with tenuous temperatures. So it does suggest maybe a coating to an inch or two. And I did an early snowfall forecast map for Sunday, of which I have very little confidence, and you'll see it come up on the screen. But I basically went with a trace line from Route 78 to right through the city, and I put a 1 inch line across northwest New Jersey to, let's say, the southern Putnam County, and then east into Connecticut, and I put a 2 inch line from central Putnam from central Putnam northward, and then from say Sullivan, you see it on the screen now what I did,
I'm
and
seeing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'm
from
seeing.
Sullivan County northeast to Poughkeepsie, and then on up north to Kingston, I have a box of 3 inches plus. That's what I've done here for an early forecast call.
And you think most of that will be, let's say, late Sunday or Sunday night?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure of the time. That's another thing that's bothersome to me with this because if you look at the NAM, let me bring the NAM back up, and in fact, let's go to the. I'm going to bring the NAM 3 kilometer NAM up. I don't know what the value of the 3 kilometer NAM is and how it works, but if you look at the 3 kilometer NAM, it develops snow here during Sunday afternoon, late in the afternoon. And as you said for the Giants game, if you look at the map, it does have snow in North Jersey. This is at 1 a.m. on Friday. I mean, it's got snow from northern New Jersey northeastward into southern and central New England, and some darker blue patches as well. Uh, I, I don't know. Some of the earlier runs just basically showed an arm of warm advection snow. Maybe that's what that omega was about, because some of the earlier NAM runs had made it look like we were going to get this warm advection precip come up Sunday afternoon into early evening, and then it would just quit, and you'd have to wait for any kind of additional precip from the low offshore if it were to develop overhead. I don't have a good feel for this. I just don't. And by the way, there's still that little high that's sitting in New Brunswick with a little nose poking down into New England just to about us. I mean, in some ways it smells like it smells like be very careful with this. And yet at the same time I look at it and I want to just shrug my shoulders and say, So I'm not. I don't know. I honestly, there are times when weather people don't know, and I think that's where we are at this point.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, the have you looked at the plumes
Le
today?
Plume. Yeah, I saw the 50. They gave an inch to the city. They gave Islip just under an inch. And but up in the Hudson Valley, I would have saw. I would have liked to have seen some bigger numbers there. Only gave like maybe a couple of inches to Poughkeepsie. It really didn't
Right.
do very much.
Well, it seems though that the time frame to watch for whatever may happen is probably in the time frame around Sunday evening, like let's say around 9, 10, 11 o'clock. That's when they're pointing toward whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you're right. The total snowfall, I'm looking at Poughkeepsie here, is 1.75. Not really a especially robust number for snow, but maybe later Sunday or Sunday evening, and as time wears on, this may end up being something a little bit more than just wet snow mixing with rain.
By the way, I'll just show this real quick because we can only see Sunday morning and Monday morning. I have the 850 millibar European for Sunday morning, and the zero line is north of Albany. Okay, with that 1024 high. By Monday morning, the zero line is has collapsed well offshore to the southeast, but the European also has the surface low Sunday morning as a 999 low out at 38 and 68, which is way to the east of what the other models are doing with this. So I don't know. I honestly I I this as I said, Joe doesn't know. This Joe doesn't know.
No, we don't know either. So maybe
So
we'll have something interesting to talk about on Sunday morning for coffee with Joe
well,
and
maybe
Joseph.
we will. So let's quickly run through the long range. We said last night that whatever the long range was doing yesterday, which was very suggestive with regards to seeing a pattern realignment beginning later in this coming week and beyond, that we were that it was highly likely that we would see the models waffle back and forth in different directions. The European has not really done that. The European, if you watch, the Pacific pulls off the coast, builds a ridge in the west. You've got a blocky high that ridges up near west of the Azores and then comes around across southern Greenland into northeastern Canada. Lower pressures in southeastern Canada and a rather active, again, that southern part of this jet stream is busy with shortwave after shortwave after shortwave. And as we go through the period, it actually the European gets even more interesting in the longer term because we do have a connection that runs from northern Canada into the eastern part of the United States. Your upper low in the Gulf of Alaska sitting over the Aleutians, so you also have some ridging up into northwestern Canada. So it continues to suggest that the pattern is realigning, and then yet when you look at the GFS today, the GFS did what I expected it to do, which was to bring back the fire hose in the Pacific with only a minimal respite. And you'll see it here. Let me run it back. Okay, so here we go. So now we're into Sunday and Monday. You see our weather systems in the east. Then we've got more energy that drops down into the central plains with an upper low, and you get a little bit of ridging in western Canada. So there's a temporary respite. And then, of course, for the end of next week on this run, on the latest run, which sort of matches up with some of the other models, you hold on, I got to clean my board here. But you've got higher than normal pressures up in eastern Canada. You've got this rather strong looking shortwave underneath it. This is Thursday night. And on the GFS late this afternoon, it brought a low up the coast and brought some snow here for next Friday. It looks like a fast moving type system, but it did do something with it on this particular run. But on the other hand, Joe, if there's too much blocking, this low could wind up getting kicked out to the east off the North Carolina coast, and we see nothing but high clouds out of this.
Well, we're still a ways to go before we before that particular system comes close enough to us to start making any specific predictions. And it would be nice if we could get both the GFS and the European on the same page, but they apparently are not yet
They're both
on
reading
the same
different
page.
books,
Yes,
apparently.
indeed.
And by the way, the Sunday storm becomes very important here because if you take a look on the upper right, it goes into the Gulf of Maine. It's still there on Tuesday, and it's there on Wednesday, and finally, even on Thursday. We've got wind here to deal with once that starts to develop. Looks like it strengthens a bit once it's south and east of Nova Scotia. There's another trough that comes around and re-energizes it where we have a northerly flow here for most of this coming week, right into Thursday morning. We're still on the back edge of the old storm that is sitting out to the east, and the thing is, if it doesn't get out of the way, then you're going to see this next low that on this run wound up coming up the coast. If that thing doesn't get out of the way, then you could wind up seeing this thing getting suppressed underneath and pushing out to the east, as we said. So uh, that negative NAO, if it's too negative, you can't get storms to climb up the coast like this. They wind up going out underneath us. Great for North Carolina and Virginia and West Virginia and Kentucky and maybe Eastern Tennessee for snow lovers there. But as far as we're concerned, it would not work. So uh, also, we weren't nobody. I hope nobody was expecting us to give you an answer about that because we weren't going to do it.
If for nothing else, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if for nothing else, it looks like it could get rather blustery here with some rather gusty winds. But beyond that, I'll reserve my judgment for, you know, the days to come. Like a few people on the chat board are getting antsy. Like for example, Danielo Evangelista says, "Why do you guys doubt this winter? It's honestly getting freaking annoying and tired."
It just started, for God's sake. It's only early January. Come on.
Then he apologized. He said, "Sorry for the language."
No, listen. We got most winters. You don't get. We've actually had a significant snowfall back 2 weeks ago. That was a bonus.
Yeah,
Um,
somebody, who was it? Was it Samantha Mott or somebody said we haven't had a good front-loaded winter in years. Well, what do you call 10.5 inches of snow in mid-December?
I was thinking
That's
about this. I was thinking about this, Joe, and without going back and looking at the stats, but I bet you if you go back and look, you will find that there are very few front-loaded winters.
okay,
What do you think of that? I'm just doing this blindly, but I'm trying to think back to over the last 20 or so years. I mean, we had a couple of winters that were not only front loaded but ran through the whole 3 months
right.
with a lot of activity. But that was certainly we were in that 20-year upcycle. We don't know whether that upcycle is over with or whether it's going to continue
I you know
with what happens in the coming months.
I think this winter, Joe. I think it's going to take. It may take the better part of January. I'm still saying I think February and March are going to be the winter weather lovers 2 months. So middle and backloaded winter in terms of cold and or snow heading this way. I'm not sure about January. I mean, if you believe the CPC, January turns out to be a bleh month with mild and dry conditions. But I think things are going to flip during the second half of the winter. So we'll see.
Yeah. 16 was front loaded. I don't know. It was 16, 15, 16. 15 was also the December of the hellfire, if you remember, when we had 70-degree temperatures on Christmas Eve. As Brandon Doherty was pointing out about 16. By the way, I just want to say thank you, Brandon, for hitting Super Chat as well tonight. Joe and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I do know from working on the numbers, uh, the December uh, snowfall normal, given the activity in the last 20 years, is going to go back up over 5 inches for New York City anyway. So somewhere between 5 and 6 inches. But if you a lot of that high number is actually driven by the handful of big snowstorms that we've had in the month of December. So if you take those, I hate to say it this way because you can't really take them out. But if you were to X out the big snowfalls, like the Boxing Day storm, the back-to-back big storms that we had in December 2009 and 2010, you're left with some smallish events that really don't amount to too much. So the big the big storms all skew the numbers higher because we get big storms here from time to time. But I mean, in terms of a truly front loaded winter, it just doesn't happen very often. Usually we have to wait till the first part, at least the first part of January, to get the winter really underway.
Right, right.
You know, and
I agree.
and the other question is, and I'm not going to bring it up tonight. I'm going to try to get a guest on to try to talk about the what's going on in the stratosphere with the uh, models continuing to show a major uh, stratospheric warming event and what looks like a wholesale destruction of the polar vortex at that level. I still don't understand what that will mean from a practical standpoint. So I think I'm going to try to find somebody. Uh, David Schwartz suggested someone, and I'm not gonna say who, but I'm gonna because I want to reach out to this person first and see if they're willing to come on the show. But I want to get somebody who knows that that's their area of expertise, so that they can explain to everybody, including you and I, what it means that when the polar vortex splits and you get one center that goes one place and one center that goes in the other. How does what goes on up there impact what goes on down here? As I think that's a question we need answering.
Right.
So
All
we'll
right.
see.
We'll see. Yes.
Okay, so we've run almost an hour tonight on New Year's Eve, which isn't too shabby. So that Stephen Franco says, you think we're overdue here in the tri-state and Long Island area to get a major icing event? I've been saying that for years, and we never get them. I remember back in the 70s, Joe, when you and I were kids in the early 70s, we had a couple of big ice storms that impacted us. But it's been for I mean we've gotten icing events that have been tied in with snowstorms. But in terms of a wholesale start to finish icing event, it's been a long time since we've seen anything like that.
December of 1973. It was my grandfather's 65th birthday, and we had a big party scheduled at a catering hall in the Bronx, and that was the famous storm that caused a lot of ice, very little snow, only about an inch of snow, a lot of ice. It was on a Sunday into Monday, and places south and west of us, like Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore, got nailed with like 6 to 12 inches of snow. That's the one ice storm that jumps out of in my December ice storm that jumps out at me. And of course, we've had other ice storms since 1973 in January and February. But you want to talk about a December weather event? That's the one, and that goes back almost 50 years or
Yeah,
40 years,
40 years.
40 or 50,
For no, well,
73,
47 years.
27, 47.
47 years.
I,
So
I said, I suppose I was talking about this with my sister the other night. I said to myself, it's scary. I said, you remember Grandpa's 65th birthday, and now yours truly is edging into that category now, all
we
these years later.
well, better to get there than not get there.
Yes.
Ms. Native Cherokee says, I just wanted to snow here in eastern southern Virginia. 18 inches would be perfect. Okay, I see what we can do about that. We will try to please, we'll try to oblige. I know it will soon, about 2 to 3 weeks from now. Well, look, I'll tell you this: you've got the NAO in a good position to favor snow for the Mid Atlantic states. The question is whether the other teleconnections that we look at, the other areas of geography that are important, like Canada and the Pacific, if they're going to cooperate. So that's the big variable here. So you've got parts of the puzzle that are in your favor, but there are parts right now that are still in flux. So we will just have look. We don't have any choice. There's nothing we can do to change whatever the weather pattern is. It is, and we can't take it personal. And we just have to move forward and just go with the flow. I guess
That's right.
there's no better way to put it.
And I see here Christina sent a picture, a couple of pictures to me. Um, it's a picture. It shows a picture of the full moon in between Jupiter and Saturn, which is an impossibility. I guess it was artistic license. You could not get a full moon between the two planets, simply because the position in the sky where the two planets are, the full moon is nowhere near there. But it's a nice picture. It's a cute picture, and I thank her very much for sending it to me.
The ultimate eclipse.
Yes.
All right, the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you nightly by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider and a provider of everything you need to get you through any winter storms that we have. And they are at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in the West Babylon, 631 756 1125. You can call ahead to have them save you some of their rock salt or any of the other snow melt products that you might need, whether you are just one person or if you're a crew. Just give them a call, 631 756 1125. They have the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, right on the south shore of Long Island. So we're off tomorrow.
Yeah, like I said, we may have something to talk about on Sunday morning. But we have a couple of more runs to look at, and maybe for all of you snow lovers who have already given up on the winter season, maybe there's going to be a surprise for later Sunday and Sunday night. We'll see.
We'll see. Okay. All right, everybody. Hope your new year was great. It's the
Oh,
beginning, 364 days to go. Wait, wait, I'm sorry. Is this a leap year?
no, it's not.
Oh, it's 22, right?
We had one in 2020, and the next one will be in
Oh, that's
2024.
right. It's 2020. I'm sorry. For a brief moment there, I thought we were still in 2020.
I'm just reading an article here online while you're
I'm
closing
losing
the
it.
show out, and the article says that due to entropy, the universe is slowing down and spreading out. And after reading that,
Just like
I
us.
I feel the universe's pain, and so do you.
Yes, exactly. All right, everybody, have a great night. Travel safely if you're traveling at all. And Joe and I will be back Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So bring your coffee, bring your breakfast, and we'll take a look at what the Sunday system will be bringing the Northeast. So
Yes.
we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Nighty night.
All right, close.